Hello and welcome to the 2020 Victoria Bach Festival. I'm Executive Director Nina DeLeo, and this evening's program is one that is dear to my heart. One of my favorite parts about Festival Week is meeting the emerging artists. Now, the emerging artists are musicians at the beginning of their careers who are chosen through an application process and invited to Victoria during Festival Week to perform a formal recital that's then followed up by a series of outreach concerts all over town during the week to the public library, assisted living centers, children's camps. And it's just a real variety and a way to reach people outside the concert halls and bring our music out into the community. I just love the joy of a toddler's face hearing a bassoon for the first time or a trumpet for the first time, and then maybe a resident of an assisted living center being serenaded by a tenor. It's very special to be able to reach people in this way. And so tonight we're bringing some past participants in that wonderful program. We want to thank our sponsors of tonight's program, the Texas Cultural Trust, which was established in 1995 as a voice for arts education and arts advocacy in Texas. They do amazing work demonstrating both the cultural and the economic impact of the arts in Texas, and are really also focused on education and young performers with the Texas Young Masters program, and we're just very honored that they've chosen to support this program tonight. Our co-sponsor is Dodie Griffin, who's a longtime supporter of the festival and who loves the Emerging Artist Program. So Dodie, thank you so much for your support of this program. We want to thank our season sponsors, the O'Connor and Hewitt Foundation, the City of Victoria, and the Texas Commission on the Arts. And now I'm happy to have join me our Emerging Artist Coordinator, Faith DeBow.
Good evening and welcome. We're so pleased that you've chosen to join us for this fourth program of the 2020 Victoria Bach Festival. Thanks for being with us in this digital space. Back in 1991, Craig Hella Johnson started what was called at the time the New Young Artist Program. It's now changed names to the Emerging Artist Program. But the point was the same, to really celebrate and feature artists who are just beginning their careers but are really outstanding. So as a way to give them opportunities, and as you heard, also take the festival to all sorts of creative venues around the city. We all seem to have projects that we would always love to get to and don't quite seem to find the time for. I think many of you during quarantine have found time for baking or maybe gardening or home improvement. And it's the same for organizations as well. One thing we've always thought would be fun to do here at Victoria Bach Festival would be to go and check back with some of those emerging artists and see where their careers have gone from the year that they were in Victoria. And it just never quite seemed to find the time for that. So this year with our digital format, that made it possible. And it's going to be really fun to check in with a smattering of those people tonight. There have been more than 60 to 65 emerging artists featured over the years of the program. So it's just impossible to talk with them all. But we'll be talking tonight with 7 of the alumni and then the 2 2020 emerging artists. They'll be joining us live from all across the nation. We're looking forward to hearing music from each of them as well. So our format tonight will be that we'll hear a recording from each person from the year that they were at the festival, an archival recording. And then we'll join that person to talk live and hear updates on what they've been doing with their life since that time. We're going to start with tenor Oliver Worthington from the year 1993. We'll be going in chronological order, by the way. We're going to hear from Oliver an excerpt from the Benedictus from the Mozart Requiem. Enjoy. Where are you speaking to us from?
I am in Austin, Texas right now.
So just up the road. That's great. Well, you are the most senior, I would say, of the alumni joining us tonight, if we call it that. Can you tell us, what were you doing back in 1993? You're the only person I'm not as familiar with from those years.
In 1993, I was a doctoral student at University of Texas in Austin.
Right.
I just finished my first year.
Mm-hmm. And what's a favorite memory from your time there? It's, of course, been a while. But...
It's been a while. Memories, you know. No, some of my favorite memories, you know, of course, performing the Mozart was wonderful. I remember they had these concerts that we would do, and it seemed like at the crack of dawn. They were early morning concerts, and just kind of watching me and all of my friends trying to get ourselves together to sing at what seemed unreasonable.
I think they were at 7 a.m. actually. I saw the program from that year. Singing at 7 a.m. That's quite amazing.
And then Virginia Dupuis, I think, sang the Knoxville Summer of 1915 that summer. Mm-hmm. And it was my first time hearing that piece live. So that was a favorite memory as well.
Yeah, such a great one. This is not uncommon for young singers, but you've changed voice types since then. You're no longer a tenor. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, you know, I started off singing as a baritone, and when I was just about finished with my undergrad degree, I always had a lot of ring in my sound, and my teacher said, "Hey, you might be a tenor, you should try this." And I tried it, tried it for a while, and you know, it just the top was never secure for me, and I found that I enjoyed singing more when I was in a lower register, and had a teacher finally just said, "Why are you doing this? Sing what makes you happy." So
that's great. I especially wish we had a sort of recording to compare then and now for you. But so what are you doing now professionally? Tell us about what you're doing more recently.
Yeah, so I'm teaching at Butler University in Indianapolis. So I divide my time between Indiana and Texas. And I have done a lot of singing since I moved up there. I've sung with the Indianapolis Opera, the Indianapolis Symphonic Choir. I recently did the baritone solos in The Creation, which is a wonderful performance down on the Hilbert Circle Theater with the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra. I got to sing in Europe last summer, and had actually quite a few gigs lined up for this summer that kind of have all fallen through now, thanks to COVID.
Yeah, I think that's the same for all of us. But I can picture a lot of that, having spent some years in Indianapolis myself. So.
Right. Well, I know you're a Butler. You're a Butler grad.
Yes. So, yeah, as a proud alumna of Butler. So, well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to hear some music next from Douglas Harvey, cellist, from the year 2001. He'll be playing the Courant movement of the Bach Suite in D major, Suite number 6. So let's hear from Douglas, and then we'll enjoy chatting with him. Thanks, Douglas. That was beautiful. Always great to have Bach here in Victoria at the Bach Festival. I want to introduce Joey Martin, who led the Emerging Artist Program from 1998 to 2010. And he was leading the program in the years that Douglas Harvey and the next young artist were with us in Victoria. So he's going to join us for a moment to talk with them.
Thank you, Faith. Welcome to Victoria, to the greater metropolis. We certainly miss seeing you cats there. You know, I do get to see Faith quite often because we're colleagues at Texas State, and actually we're colleagues at Texas State now with Craig Ella Johnson. So Victoria Bach Festival, as you'll notice throughout the week, is very tied to many of our faculty. We appreciate the beautiful music that you guys have had. I had the distinct privilege to work with the young artists. It was one of my favorite things to do. And Doug was actually one of the first ones that was official. It was in that transition period where they were beginning to just have keyboardists, and then they finally had a specific person. So hi, Doug, how are you doing?
Great, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, doing really well, actually. So tell us, what were you doing around the time in 2001? What was going on in your life then when you came to the festival?
Let's see, I believe that I had possibly, it was either that year or the year before that I went to the Leonard Rose competition, and that was in the summer of, I think, 2001. And then right from there came to Victoria Bach Festival.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun year. You were incredibly young, and I remember you were a very favorite person with the kids when we go out and be with them, especially at the library. They were very fascinated by your cello playing. Do you have a favorite memory of the Bach Festival?
Well, actually, one of my favorite memories was when Melissa Givens sang the spiritual, Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child. And I was sitting in the orchestra then, and I think I probably was crying, but it was just so beautiful.
I think several of us cried at that one. It was beautiful. So tell us, between that time and now, what are you up to? What have you been doing?
Oh, just hanging out, at my house. I haven't been going very many places, and I'm working on a new CD. My other CD, which released last year, here, this one.
Ta-da!
Oh, it's backwards. But there's more information on my website, douglasharveycello.com. And yeah, it's been great. Have a lot of time to do my own projects. Right now, they're broadcasting on KMFA performance of Don Quixote that I did 10 years ago. So I'm kind of going back and forth listening to that as well. So it's been kind of a dream, I dare say.
Well, before COVID, and actually not long after the festival, you became associated with the Austin Symphony, didn't you?
Yes, I've been with this symphony since '97, a section, and then in 2002, I became the principal.
Yeah, that was amazing. Well, your life is going beautifully, and actually, Doug and I occasionally still have opportunities to make music together. You actually played the St. John Passion here at Texas State that we then offered at the Victoria Bach Festival I think it was in April, so it was before the festival proper, but we were sponsored by it. And you were
Dan Coakwell, who you'll hear next, was singing in that too.
He was the evangelist.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to see you, and thanks for sharing some time with us.
Thank you, Joey. Bye.
Bye-bye. And then next, Faith, are we listening to Dann?
Yes. Yeah, so thanks to Douglas. Next, we're going to hear Dann Coakwell from 2006, tenor, and he'll be singing for us a fun little piece by Purcell called I'll Sail Upon the Dog Star. So let's hear from Dann now.
Sail upon the dog star, I'll sail upon the dog star, and then pursue the morning, and then pursue the morning. I'll chase the moon till it be noon, I'll chase the moon till it be noon, but I'll make her leave her morning. I'll climb the frosty mountain, mountain, I'll climb the frosty mountain, and then I'll coin the weather. I'll tear the rainbow from the sky, I'll tear the rainbow from the sky, and tie both ends together. The stars pluck from their orbs too, the stars pluck from their orbs too, crowd them in my budget. And whether I'm a roaring boy, let all the nations judge it.
Dan, that brings back some memories, the dog star. Well done, my friend.
Thanks.
Yeah, so you and I, much like Doug and I, have continued a relationship in different ways since the festival. But before, when you first came to the festival as a young artist, we'd already had an association through Craig at the Chamber Singers at the University of Texas. What was going on around that time, though? I think, weren't you already at Texas Tech working on your master's?
2006 was right before I went to Texas Tech to get a master's and then subsequently a doctorate. But yeah, it was a fun time to get to know you, Joey, for many years, all the way back to 1995. I think that was my first year singing with Craig at University of Texas at Austin, and so. Had been kind of a freelance singer for several years after finishing my undergrad in 1999, and had gotten to work with you a couple times. And then when we were able to do this young artist project together, that was just such a thrill. And it was like kind of the next. It happened to be the sort of turning of a chapter for me of kind of sending into another thrust of my career. Going to Texas Tech, and then shortly thereafter, Yale University to do the program there as well.
You skimmed by that word. Say it nice and slow so everybody can hear. Where was it that you went to?
To Yale University, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was really fortunate to get to, after I did the Young Artist program at Victoria Rock Festival, which I just absolutely loved, and I sang with Conspirare a few years before and after 2006, in various iterations and projects at the Victoria Bach Festival. So for me, it was always a fun just time to be with all the amazing people down there, and the big cheese wheel. that was a special memory for me. But and of course the humidity, that was always enjoyable. but yeah, so after 2006, that's where I also got a chance to work with Carl Dent. Kind of for the first time, he and I had been in touch leading up to getting into the program at Texas Tech, but he was running a master class, so that worked out well. But then shortly after that, in 2009, started my artist diploma at Yale University, doing the sacred music degree there, which is oratorio and chamber music and all kinds of things like art song and stuff. And so between Victoria Bach Festival and Yale University, there was a lot that kind of sent me on the path of doing kind of making my career primarily revolve around Baroque music and Bach, and then have really kind of made the primary thing that I love doing is the Bach Evangelist. In 2007, the year after I did the Young Artist program, was when I got to do my very first Bach Evangelist at Victoria Bach Festival, doing several of the evangelist recits for the Christmas oratorio that we did that summer with Conspirare. And then shortly thereafter got to do Bach Evangelists, for many years, and have to this day been doing it. And like you said before, I got to sing with you and Doug at both Texas State University and the Victoria Bach Festival in 2014, I think it was, or 13, I think. Maybe 14, doing the St. John. So yeah.
it was so amazing to hear you sing that then. I mean, it was electric. You owned the evangelist in a way that just seemed grounded in years way beyond your age. So it was so fun to see you as a young artist. And then when you came back completely as the full artist, not that you always weren't, but it was stunning. So the Bach festivals had such beautiful influences on so many of us. And you've done quite a few evangelists in lots of amazing places. What are some of the favorite performances that you've been a part of since leaving the Bach Festival?
Yeah, I have just been so blessed. I mean, I really have gotten to sing in some amazing places since then. I've gotten to tour through Europe and in Latin America as well, to some degree, and in Japan with Masaki Suzuki. One of the, he's certainly a Bach scholar and is well established as a Bach specialist himself. And so I've gotten to do the St. Matthew Passion with him. I've gotten to do the arias for the St. Matthew Passion with Helmut Rilling, which was a big dream come true because Helmut Rilling is a big idol of mine in the Bach world. And I know that he, there's a lot of history between him and Craig Hellett Johnson as well. And so that was a special thing, for me getting to, because Craig is so special to me, being a big part of my world with Conspirare and everything that's that as much as that's been a part of my life and many stages and chapters. So yeah, aside from that, Japan, Europe, South America, just some amazing venues. And
I want to be sure that our viewers caught, this means that you're singing in major venues with the leading conductors. I mean, Suzuki, it's hard to beat Suzuki and Rilling and Craig Hellett Johnson, of course. But that's amazing. So congratulations to you. And then you taught for a little bit at Yale, didn't you? And now you have what position do you have now? I won't give it away. I'll let you tell it.
Sure. Yeah. So after I finished my program at Yale, 2011, I was lucky to get to work as a one of their staff voice instructors, working with the undergrads there, and that was all while doing that kind of really opened up my performing career to what it became, and so then the past 3 years, I have been teaching on faculty full time at Ithaca College in upstate New York, and it's just been a dream come true. It's wonderful to be there. It's just a great program. I mean, I can't say enough good things about it. But yeah, so I've been full time at Ithaca College, working there while still performing quite a bit up until now, as we all are kind of navigating this new normal, temporary new normal with COVID. What's that?
Dan, it is amazing to see you, and it's stunning to see how your career has just taken off. You're an amazing singer. I'm always thrilled to hear you. So thank you for sharing with us. And before I turn back to Faith, I want to join you and Doug in saying hello to all of Victoria and to the extended Bach Festival, because I know it's reaching people throughout the world. Thank you all for the gifts that you've given us and allowing all of us to be a part of your beautiful festival, and have a great 2020 festival.
Yes, amen.
Back to Faith.
Die Welt wird wieder neu auf Bergen und in Gründen, will sich die Anmut doppelt schön verbinden. Der Tag ist von der Kälte frei. Für was alles
Thanks, Estelí. So we just heard an excerpt from the Bach Wedding Cantata, in which you got to hear soprano Estelí Gomez from 2012, and also her co-emerging artist from that year, bassoonist Laura Miller. It was so great to hear the two of you together again. Laura couldn't join us, unfortunately. She now lives in Europe, so the time difference was just too much, but it was really great to hear her at least. The two of you kind of developed a fast friendship that summer. That was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I miss her a lot.
That's one of the things I really enjoy about leading the program now, is the opportunity to kind of introduce new musical friendships, and it's fun to see where those go sometimes. So back in 2012, you were just a year past finishing your master's degree, I think at McGill University.
That's right. Yeah.
And we're singing all sorts of gigs. You sing a really wide variety of repertoire, and I think you had basically started living out of a suitcase and traveling from gig to gig. You did that for quite a while. How long were you doing that?
Yeah. I just, so that was for 8 years. And so I had just moved out of my apartment in Montreal and into a storage unit in May 2011. And so that was, it was just a year into what became a lifestyle, really. And yeah, so I was fairly fresh in that part of my life, of my touring musical life.
Yeah, it's been really fun to follow things on Facebook and in person and see where you've gone with all of that and know that it worked out so well. You've sung with a really wide variety of groups and still do. One of them, Conspirari, of course, you've sung with quite a bit. Another one that you're a core member of is Roomful of Teeth, which is a really interesting group. Could you tell us some things about them?
Yeah, absolutely. Roomful of Teeth is a group that does new music for voices. And so it's by commission, and we commission people to write music that incorporates a lot of different vocal techniques from different parts of the world. We study with master teachers from different parts of the world to learn about a lot of kinds of singing. So by the time I came to Victoria Bach Festival, the group was very fledgling. We had only been together about 3 years and probably had almost as many performances together. So it's dedicated to commissioning new works for voices and functions like a band rather than a choir. So we really emphasize the specific instruments that each, that the voices are. And yeah, we just got back from a tour in Australia and New Zealand and Portland, Oregon, where it was cut short, unfortunately, by COVID, but we did manage to do this opera that we were doing in New Zealand with Peter Sellers directing, and then also bring our shows to Australia and back home to Oregon.
Wow, how fun.
Yeah.
There's 8 of you in the group plus an artistic director, yes. So you can be really nimble and do a variety of things. You had a really exciting experience, and I think it was 2013. I might have the year wrong. But could you tell us about your experience in LA with that group?
Oh, yes. So our first album was nominated for 3 Grammys, and we were invited to perform at the Grammy Awards in 2014, at which point I think all of us had only thought through the part where we performed, and then we got off stage and relaxed for maybe 2 more category announcements before we were invited back on stage, and we won for our first album. So that was very exciting, very whirlwind. But yeah, that's certainly helped us to build tours, to build an audience for our music.
And I know you've had more Grammy nominations with that group and others since then too.
That's right.
You mentioned the University of Oregon. I know you've had a lot of connection there. I know there's been a kind of semi-annual or maybe more than annual project you've done there.
Yeah.
Competition program. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, every year I go to the University of Oregon in Eugene, and Robert Keir heads up this program, or has started this program for me, of commissions of vocal works, new vocal works in recital. So every year I get to work with composition students, often at a master's, doctorate level, sometimes undergraduates as well, who are excited about writing new vocal music in a more idiomatic way, music that singers are excited to sing. So I'm really passionate about that. And that actually dovetailed very much into my current position at Lawrence Conservatory, in which I teach voice, but I also, my passions for new music and sort of interdisciplinary musicianship are very celebrated. So yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. You always have something really interesting going on. It's been to follow it the last 8 years. Thanks so much, Estelí, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
We're going to hear next from horn player Reese Farnell from the year 2015. And we'll get to enjoy a short excerpt of him playing Mozart Horn Concerto No. 4, the first movement. So let's enjoy some music from Reese, and then we'll visit with him a bit. Thanks, Reese. It's so nice to have you with us again. Back in 2015, 5 years ago, I think you were just a year past your bachelor's degree from UT Austin. And you
Yes.
studied, with Pat Hughes, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
Part of the Bach Festival.
Mhm.
And then you were at that time halfway through your master's degree at Yale University.
Correct, yeah.
We're glad to have you join us that summer. Tell us where you went after that.
So I finished my master's degree at Yale and did another short master's at Yale also. So I was there for 3 years. And then I, for a little bit, played horn in an orchestra in China, in Sichuan province, before I decided to come back to the US and freelance. So I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. And so I returned to the DFW area, which is a great freelancing scene. And so since I guess I've been here for 2.5 years, and so now I've been playing with Fort Worth Symphony and then freelancing with Dallas Symphony, Dallas Opera, Dallas Winds. There's a ton of great groups around here. So
yeah, that's great. And you've been planning some kind of socially distanced quintet concerts recently. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so several friends of mine who we go pretty far back were from Texas and kind of went to school in different areas and then kind of regrouped here. We have a brass ensemble. It was a quintet originally. Now it's a brass sextet. It's called the Fort Worth Brass. And we decided to start meeting over quarantine. We met socially distanced at a church and put on a live stream where everyone was socially distanced. And it was just a concert as if there was an audience there, but there was no physical audience. So now we're working with Spectrum Chamber Music Society, which is in Fort Worth, and then we're also doing our own concerts all online.
That's great. I think it's definitely forced us all to be creative, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The technology was there. We just had to be forced to use it.
Yeah, so I think we're all kind of blossoming into new avenues, which is great too.
Yeah.
Well, we also get to have your emerging artist from 2015 join us tonight, which is great. Kind of the only complete set we have today. We get to enjoy hearing from Brian Giebler, also tenor. The two of you were a fun pair that year for sure and had some nice duets. But we're going to hear a Schumann piece for voice and piano by Brian next, Mit Myrten und Rosen, gorgeous Schumann song. So let's hear that from Brian, and then we'll enjoy visiting with him a bit. Thanks, Reese.
Schrein, nun sei
Thanks so much, Brian, for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Faith.
It was really fun to play that beautiful Schumann song with you, so it was great to hear it again. Back in 2015, I think you had recently moved to New York City and started freelancing. And I think you had just recently done Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center solo debuts. Am I right?
Yeah, I think it was about that time. I've since performed in Carnegie about 8 or 9 times, so it's been fun to revisit that hall. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind of a trip since I was in Victoria about 5 years ago.
That's fun. Yeah, Carnegie is such a special place with so much amazing history. It's fun for it to be your hometown hall now.
So true.
I know you performed a lot with Conspirare. Can you, but some other choral groups also. What are some of the other groups you're working with?
Yeah, of course. I worked with Seraphic Fire and Conspirare a lot at the beginning of my career. And then ever since the Bach Festival, I actually did the other 2 vocal Bach Festival Young Artist programs with Oregon Bach Festival and Carmel Bach Festival after Victoria. And since then, I've actually done a couple of other bigger Baroque groups in the country, including Boston Early Music Festival, Boston Baroque. I work consistently with Trinity Wall Street in New York, singing Bach cantatas almost every week until this past March. And yeah, I mean, Baroque music, Handel, Bach has been a big part of my life ever since the festival.
That's really wonderful. That we can't really take all the credit, but it's wonderful that it sparked something that you've loved so much. I know that you have a CD coming out really soon. Can you tell us about that? I'm really excited to hear it in just a few weeks.
Of course. Actually, at the Victoria Bach Festival, one of the pieces I performed on my segment of the recital was a Britten piece. And I just fell in love with the music of Benjamin Britten and researched more of that, including Ivor Gurney music as well. And I just felt that I needed to put a CD together of that type of music. So I've created a CD called A Lad's Love, and it includes early 20th century English art song by Ivor Gurney, Benjamin Britten, Ireland, and it's with string quartet, piano, and the Britten Canticle 2, Abraham and Isaac, with Reggie Mobley. And so that's actually, this is the CD, and it's going to be available on July 3rd is the actual release, which is pretty exciting to actually have something to come out during this time. And more information about that is available on my website, briangiebler.com, and it will be available on iTunes, Amazon, all the things, Spotify.
All the places.
Exactly.
That's so great. I hope we have some kind of online CD release party or something too.
I hope to do that. You guys have given me some great ideas. You're doing fantastic with this virtual experience.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. It sounds like that festival 2015 kind of sparked a lot of ideas for you, not only the love of Baroque music, but also Britten and English song. The piece that he mentioned that he performed by Britten was some of the movements of the Britten Serenade for tenor, horn, and strings. The strings were played by me on the piano, and then, of course, Brian is tenor, and Reese is the hornist, and it was a really special evening. So it's really fun that you've pursued that since, and I'm excited to hear that. It sounds like it's going to be a gorgeous recording.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thanks so much for joining us this evening. It's really great to see you again here in this, at least in 2D version.
Of course, my pleasure.
We have one last alum of the Emerging Artist Program that we'll hear from this evening before we meet our 2020 Emerging Artists. That's from 2017. It's Dillon MacIntyre, tenor trombone. And he was joined that year also by harpist Emily Klein, who can't join us tonight, but you're going to get to hear a duet from the two of them by Ravel. Now, Ravel did not write duets for trombone and harp. Probably none of those exist in the world, or can count on one hand maybe. But the tenor trombone is in a similar register to several other instruments, so we borrowed a few pieces that summer. It's probably our most unusual pairing of instruments we've ever had, but it was really fun the way that they found to work together. So let's listen to the Ravel piece in form of a habanera. by Dillon MacIntyre, tenor trombone, and Emily Klein, harpist. Thanks, Dillon. It was so fun to hear you and Emily again. That was probably my favorite piece from your program that year. It was just so creative and different, but a really beautiful way to pair the two of you. Back in 2017, I think you were halfway through your master's degree at, was it Northwestern?
That's right, Northwestern, yeah.
Yeah.
Northwestern University, and I think afterwards I went to finish that up, and now I'm living in Los Angeles as a freelance musician.
Oh, so a completely different area of the country. That's fun. What groups are you playing with these days?
So I am fortunate to serve as principal trombone with the Santa Barbara Symphony, and it's been a blast playing with them. As a freelancer, I play with a bunch of orchestras all throughout California, and I had a really good time. I played with Los Angeles Philharmonic last year and got to actually play one of the premiere performances of an opera with LA Opera. It was the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, and it was really tons of fun. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So much going on in that area. And of course, Santa Barbara is gorgeous. Hope you have a little time to enjoy it in between rehearsals or performances there. You've been doing a little bit of teaching too. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I teach a few different ways. I teach private piano lessons, mostly to very young beginner students. And I also teach as adjunct trombone professor at California State University of Los Angeles. I teach lessons to the students there, as well as run the trombone choir, which is it's very fun to conduct a group that I perform in so often as well. And I have a little bit more say on the repertoire that we get to perform and the venues, and it's very fun to organize. And then aside from that, I teach. I have my own private lesson studio teaching trombone players around the LA area.
That's great. Sounds like you're starting a beautiful life there. And one more question for you. Do you have a favorite memory from your time in Victoria? It's more recent, so maybe a little bit easier to remember.
Well, I'm not sure if I could narrow it down to a favorite memory, but I love performing with you and Emily in the church was a really fun time. That was actually my first time playing a live performance with harp, and I love playing pieces that are adapted for trombone and harp. And one of my goals as a trombone player is to show audiences that the trombone is more than capable of playing very lyrically and beautifully and delicately, not just bombastically and loud and using our slide to create all these crazy effects that is often used in a lot of orchestra and wind band literature, but we can also play very pretty music as well. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely displayed that in the pieces you did with Emily. It was, I remember it not being a balance issue at all. It was really fun to hear your sensitivity. And then in the same program, you turned around and had big, exciting moments when you played some pieces with piano. So it was fun to hear your versatility there.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you could join us tonight. Thank you. We'll finish up now by introducing our 2020 emerging artists. We're so glad they can be here with us digitally, and we're sorry that they couldn't have the wonderful in-person experience in Victoria that all these other alumni have had. But we have invited them to return with us in 2021. So we hope that life will be possible for them to join us in Victoria next summer. But we'll get a little taste now from some recordings and visiting with them a bit. First, we're going to hear from Matthew Shorten, who's a tenor. And we're going to hear a beautiful Schubert piece from him called Nacht und Träume. Let's enjoy some Schubert from Matthew Shorten. Thank you so much, Matthew. It's wonderful to hear and see you. That's one of my favorite songs by Schubert.
Mine
and it's
too.
just, yeah, just so gorgeous and peaceful.
It's the perfect bit of music.
I was fortunate to be able to get to meet you briefly in Houston back in early March, just a few days before things got shut down due to COVID. But I certainly hope to be able to make music together next summer if life circumstances will allow for you. Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just finished my undergraduate degree at Vanderbilt University at the Blair School of Music, and my degree is actually in composition, but I also studied voice and violin performance there. And so I really enjoy being a multidisciplinary artist. I find that the different components of the musical discipline that I study really inform one another. And so that's something I'm really passionate about going forward. And actually the reason that you and I had the chance to meet in Houston was a really exciting opportunity as the culminating week of a project I was involved with the English choir Voces 8. And they have a fantastic US Scholars Program. We met up throughout the year in Plano, Texas, earlier in the fall of 2019, and recorded an album in Minnesota. And then when you and I had the chance to meet, that was our last week, working with Voces 8 one-on-one, studying the art of choral singing, doing additional outreach at the schools in Houston. It was just a fantastic program to get a taste of the freelance performance life. And yeah, it was so funny how things changed so quickly. When I got back from that project, my plane landed and I saw that classes had been cancelled for the rest of the semester. So it was a really interesting time, but I'm so glad that we did get to have that opportunity.
Yeah, that was a really wonderful evening from all of you. Enjoyed it thoroughly. It was definitely worth the drive.
I'm so glad.
You, of course, just graduated from Vanderbilt, as you mentioned, and received quite an honor there. Can you mention that?
Oh, yes, of course. So, yes, it was an enormous surprise to me. I was awarded the Founders Medal for the Blair School of Music, which signifies sort of equivalent of valedictorian of the class, the first honours at the Blair School, which was a tremendous honour. And I'm just so grateful for the 4 years that I spent at Vanderbilt, and to have them honoured in that way was incredibly special. So, yeah, that was a fantastic honour.
Yeah, quite a recognition. As I understand, the university chooses one student from each school in the university to receive that honor. So it's really a special one for you.
Sure was.
As you mentioned, you're a composer as well, and you've actually written some wonderful art songs for tenor, clarinet, and piano. And we have been hoping to program a few of those. Hopefully we will do that next summer. It just so happens that our other emerging artist for 2020 is a clarinetist, so that worked out just perfectly.
Yes, it's ideal.
So we're going to end this evening hearing a bit from her. Her name is Erin Cameron. And we're going to hear a piece by Vidor from her. Most people know Vidor as a composer of organ music, particularly the toccata from the Organ Symphony No. 5 that's often played at Easter or other jubilant, exciting times. But this is a more lyrical piece, wonderful piece for clarinet and piano. So let's hear some music by Vidor from clarinetist Erin Cameron. Brava, Erin, what a wonderful piece. So
Thank you so much.
That it was a piece that was new to me. Hope maybe we'll get to play it together next summer, or maybe other repertoire. When was that performance from?
That was actually a performance from last year, and I was playing with a dear friend of mine, Dario Llanos Javier, who's a Madrid-based pianist. He sadly moved back to Madrid, so we won't be playing together as much in the future. But we were playing together a lot during the year 2019. And that piece was actually just a recording session. I wanted to learn the piece, and so we decided we were just going to get together and make a recording of it and hope that maybe someday an audience would hear it. And now,
just for the love of it. That's great. So this is actually sort of semi-premiere of it. That's wonderful.
A little bit, yeah.
Tell us where you are right now. You're in Dallas, Denton area.
Yeah, I currently live in Denton, Texas. I'm working on my doctorate at the University of North Texas. And I also freelance in the area. So I've played with the Dallas Winds and some of the local orchestras. I also teach a studio, an all-ages studio of clarinet students. So I teach all the way from 6th graders through college students. I really love teaching. It's a true passion of mine. I just love working with students and helping them fulfill their musical goals.
That's wonderful. And you're a teaching assistant in the clarinet studio there at UNT, is that correct?
Yes, I was a clarinet studio teaching fellow, so I worked with undergraduate students at the University of North Texas for 2 years, 2017 to 2019.
That's great. So how much longer do you have to go then with your DMA?
Hopefully not very long at all. I'm actually trying to graduate this summer. With the changes because of COVID, it's actually opened up the opportunity for me to finish my degree a semester earlier than I had planned. So hopefully I'll be graduating at the end of the summer.
Oh, that's really exciting. You get into a few silver linings there. You're an avid proponent of new music, and you've played quite a few premieres. I think something like 30 premieres of new music.
Yes, at some point I stopped counting because it got to be so many. I love working with composers. I'm also a composer myself, so new music is a deep passion of mine. I try to make it a priority anytime I have the chance to work, especially with a young composer. I try to take that opportunity and work with people and help them write the best possible pieces that they can for the clarinet. To me, it's just so exciting to get to play new music because you're playing something that no one has ever heard before and helping a composer to realize their creative voice. So new music is something that's really important to me.
That's exciting. What's one of the recent pieces that you've written?
I actually wrote a piece for clarinet solo that was supposed to be premiered this summer at the International Clarinet Association Conference by a friend of mine, Vanessa Davis McKay. Unfortunately, that conference was canceled because of COVID-19, so we're now planning to have that piece premiered next summer when the conference meets again.
That's really exciting. Definitely hoping we can hear some of your music and other pieces from you next summer. And definitely look forward to meeting you in person as well, since you're the only one I've not gotten to meet. So
that's true. I look forward to meeting you in person too.
We're so excited to have you as a 2020 emerging artist. Really happy and really hope you'll be able to join us next summer in 2021. Thanks, Erin.
Thank you so much.
So this has been a really fun evening, kind of blast from the past, visiting some of the musicians we've had in the Emerging Artists program over the years. And we're going to bring them all back in now in just a few moments. We're going to have a short photo slideshow of some of the moments from these people's years as emerging artists, just for about 2 minutes to give them all time to rejoin us on Zoom. Then we'll have them available if anyone has questions, and we'll wrap things up after that. So let's enjoy a few photos looking back.
Yay, that was so fabulous. It's been so great to have you all here with us tonight. And I'll tell you, this is the band I want to hear. So who's going to commission the work? We need to work for, what, 4 tenors and soprano, horn? Somebody's got to do that. Or maybe it exists in the rep. I'm sure Bach wrote something for just this ensemble. But it's been really wonderful to have you all here with us tonight. And we just want to also take the time to thank Faith for all of her work over the years with our emerging artists and our new young artists. And Joey Martin, who was with us earlier. Yes, some very talented musicians and leaders. And it's that underlying piano beat that helps make those performances so special. So we just want to thank everyone for coming. Does anyone, who has performed together in this ensemble before? I know that like Dann and Estelí performed together quite a bit, and Douglas, you perform, yeah. So some of you guys are seeing each other all the time. So that's fun. And then another question I had is for people, if there was a second instrument, some of you probably have a second instrument, but if there were a second instrument, what would it be? Or let's start with Erin. Do you have a second instrument? Or if you did, what is the one that you'd be dying to play?
Well, I also sort of play the piano, not super well, and I also sing, but also not quite as much. I sing with a choir occasionally. Thinking about instruments that I would love to play, I really, really love the organ. So if I ever have the opportunity, I'd love to learn to play organ.
Oliver, do you have one?
Oh yeah, I play piano. I'd love to learn to play cello.
Ooh, Douglas, you want to switch up? He's going to give you vocal lessons?
Maybe the clarinet.
Okay, I like it. Estelí, you have a second instrument?
I play piano, but I've always wanted to learn to play guitar. I'm kind of a wimp with the calluses, but I've always wanted to be better about that.
Yeah. And what about
I know that Brian already has a second instrument.
I do. Actually, I studied trumpet at Eastman as well. So I've played trumpet for a while.
Awesome. Great. Well, Faith, I don't know if you have any, do we have any other questions for people here?
No, I don't think so. So it's really been a blast to look back and visit so many old friends and hear all the wonderful things they've been up to. Thank you all for joining us. This is really great now also to have you all on the screen at once. So thank you. And for those of you watching, thank you for joining us this evening. And we invite you to return the rest of the week for all of our other festival events. The next one is tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central.
It's a whole week of music ahead, and if you like what you hear, we invite you to find the donate button at the Victoria Bach Festival website. We're so pleased and we're just honored that these amazing musicians all come to Victoria, Texas in the summer. And we missed you this year, but we're so glad we could get together like this. So thank you all, and take care, and we'll hear you back in the concert hall soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much.